Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Drum Corps Coffee Shop podcast. What's up, George?
How's it going? I'm glad we're getting so many of these out.
Yeah, it's nice to be able to crank through a whole bunch and get them out into the wild for hopefully our tens of listeners to listen to.
Absolutely.
Yeah, just so everybody knows the time of the year that it is right now, it's autumn. Football season just started.
Mm-hmm.
You know, my...
Go Raiders.
Yeah, go Raiders. My team kind of starting off a little rough. They're 1-2 and getting beat by teams they should be beating, but I guess that's football for you.
And their old quarterback, Derek Carr.
Yeah.
Is he's doing pretty well in New Orleans.
Yeah,
right
he's doing pretty well, except for this last weekend. He threw an interception at the end to not win, which is what he used to do for us when he played for the Raiders. But
yeah.
I wish him the best.
That was just
of luck.
him reminiscing.
Yeah, right.
We're in the middle of indoor audition season.
Yeah,
some lines are being set.
Yeah, it's cool seeing the section pictures that have.
Yeah, is it? Are the lines actually set until they take that section picture? Is it like that's when it becomes like official?
You know, I always think that the line's not set till maybe that first performance happens.
Yeah,
but who knows? But the section pictures are cool.
Yeah,
and we wish everybody the best of luck. And
yeah, so it's like Broken City set their line, RCC, Pulse, I think. Even though they didn't release section pictures.
No, there was like, I want to say a cymbal section picture.
Uh-huh. And the basses, released a video of them playing an etude.
Yeah. Powell dropped their section pictures.
Thesis is another group.
Yeah. And, as the weeks go by, the next couple of weeks, I'm sure we'll be seeing more.
Yeah. Let the excitement build up.
Yeah, for sure. And speaking of excitement, look at this swag hats that we got. Yeah,
nice and bright.
Shout out to Grace Notes for the hats, and you want to let everybody know what Grace Notes is?
Yeah, shout out to John Randall and Colin McNutt at Grace Notes. They're doing a really good thing because everybody knows that one of the biggest problems that performers face these days, or one of the biggest hurdles that they face, is how expensive things are with fees and all of that. And the one thing I will say about Boston Crusaders that maybe a lot of people don't see normally is that they are really, really good at tapping into their community, their alumni, in reaching out to people who have the ability to help, so that performers who have done the work, have the talent, should be able to march. But if they're facing a financial hurdle, that they can. That's not going to be something that stops them.
Yeah, and
from the opportunity.
And their alumni. I don't know if you've ever noticed, man. They're pretty excited about supporting.
Absolutely.
Their core. They build up a big fervor.
Yeah. So their website is gn.gives. Check it out, and I think they're just a really good success story about how to do that kind of thing.
And I believe 100% of the donations go to support the members.
Yeah.
So go give $10, $20, whatever you can give. What's that website again?
gn.gives.
gn.gives. And
speaking of Boston,
boy, do we have a great guest for us today.
Yep.
Go ahead, George.
So our guest has been an educator and designer at the top of this activity for the last couple of decades now. He's on staff at Boston, like we mentioned. He's also on staff at United Percussion and some other groups that I'm sure that we're going to talk about during the conversation. As a performer, he was a member of the Cadets percussion dynasty, if you want to call it that, of the early 2000s. Let's welcome Zach Schlicher to the podcast.
Welcome to the shop, Zach.
Welcome to the shop.
Hey guys, it's a pleasure being here. Thanks for having me on.
Hey, and whereabouts are you talking to us from right now?
I'm in Indianapolis, just on the west side. Yep. I live probably about 20 minutes from Lucas Oil, so it's not too far from where we get to do this thing.
So you have a long commute home after finals?
Very long, very long.
Yeah.
That actually, it's funny. That actually makes sense because, speaking of golf, we never tire talking about golf.
No.
But our good friend Daniel Gutierrez, our good mutual friend, Daniel Gutierrez, was talking about how he got into playing golf. And it was through you, Zach. And I want to say it was because you live in the Indianapolis area, you know, like a lot of really good courses and stuff to go to in that area.
Yeah, well, I suppose, I mean, well, Danny Gutierrez obviously marched with Boston when we first started teaching there. So that's how I met Danny. And then he's since obviously aged out and become a colleague. But really, I wasn't a golfer, you know, somebody that played golf until around COVID. You know, we all kind of got stuck inside. And I think one of the few things that you really could get out and do was, you know, go play golf. So, you know, a few of my buddies around here, colleagues as well, you know, just started to, you know, kind of get some tee times rocking and go out and play. Started terribly. Got a little better because of the frequency that we were playing because we had so much time. I can't say that I'm as good as I was in the COVID months, but I still enjoy playing. But anyway, that summer I brought Danny in for a couple weeks to help teach the band camp that we were able to have during COVID. You know, and we kind of took him out to the course while he was in. So yeah, it was a good time.
That's actually really interesting. So you really picked up and played a bunch of golf well into your teaching career. Is there any overlap for you when you think about what golf makes you think about and how you move? This is just my curiosity. Or is there no overlap for you? Like to me, I find a lot of parallels between golfing and drumming, both mentally and physically. Do you find that at all?
Yeah, I absolutely do. You know, I think just, you know, kind of the way that I have grown up, you know, I was a very active child. You know, I took part in tumbling and gymnastics and swimming and diving and, you know, playing baseball. And so there was a lot of physical activity along with, you know, taking piano lessons and drum lessons from an early age. You know, that really just gets you physically activated and kind of understanding the mechanics of your body, you know, how your limbs move, hand-eye coordination, physical balance, you know, range of motion, flexibility, you know, the list goes on. You know, so then, you know, as I'm kind of moving into this kind of golf world, yeah, there's a lot of parallels. I think, you know, just from a technical standpoint, there's a lot of technique in golf. You know, swing, you know, your backswing, you know, the club face, strong grip, you know, how all the things, how you stand. So there's a lot of parallels there. Timing, you know, tempo, all those things absolutely correlate for me. As well as, you know, we're all, you know, we're talking about golf, you know, I'm assuming we're all golf fans. So we watch the pros. You know, I always tried to, as a snare drummer, I would watch videos of drum corps and I would try to emulate what I saw. So same thing, you know, you watch these pro golfers and it's like, okay, how, you know, you see every breakdown with their backswing and their you know, the slow-mo and all these different camera angles and metrics. So you know, for me personally, I would try to just like emulate, you know, some of those players. I've never taken a golf lesson in my life, should. But really just trying to mimic what I see. So yeah, I guess the answer is yes. There's a lot of parallels there.
Is that something that really works for you in terms of like the way your brain works, being able to like have a reference that you can mimic?
Yeah, absolutely. Very visual learner. You know, especially as it relates to, you know, physical, you know, the physicality of, you know, how the human body kind of moves. Yeah.
You mentioned all this stuff, all these activities and stuff you got involved with growing up. What part of the country did you grow up in?
I grew up in southeastern Pennsylvania, so not too far from Philadelphia. So you guys were talking about the Raiders. I'm a hardcore Eagles fan, so go Birds.
Oh.
Hey, they won this last week, right? And that was like a nail biter game against the Saints.
The Saints, yeah.
Unfortunately, Derek Carr had to reverted back to his Raider form and
Yep.
threw that interception there at the end. But hey, that's good for you guys, you know.
Yeah, we were fortunate to come out of that one with a W. So it's still early, and the Eagles can let you down. No worries.
Don't worry, my Raiders have been letting me down for I forget probably since back when you were marching drum corps, you know. So, speaking of, when did you march? Because I remember speaking with you either this year or last year, and you told me, and I thought you were like a recent age out, but you actually marched a couple decades ago.
Yeah. Um, I marched 2001, 2002, 3, and 4 with the cadets. Auditioned for the 2000 drum corps as a junior in high school. So I was like, I think I was 16 or something like that when I went to my first camp, which was in 1999, which, was for the 2000 season. And I actually did pretty well. I had no prior experience. But I went in and I made it through a couple callbacks. And then it got to a point where I was like, all right, we're going to set the line. We have these 8 vets returning. We're going to take these 2 guys that have experience. You're a little bit young, so thanks for coming. Maybe we'll try again next year. So I tried again next year, and I got a spot. So I was pretty fortunate, to come out of high school and jump into such a high level of the marching arts right away, so that I could have a little bit of longevity um, in terms of my marching career.
So this and you went to high school in Pennsylvania.
Yes.
What was the who was teaching you there, and what was your exposure? Because you had mentioned taking music lessons and stuff like that. Did that start at an early age?
Yeah. So I guess I'll start there and then work my way forward to high school. But yeah, so um, I mean, as a little kid, I've seen pictures, and my family has told me, you're banging on pots and pans in the kitchen, kind of the classic little kid stuff. But that kind of stuck, I guess. And I think I don't exactly know how old I was, but one of those drum sets that's got like the kick drum and the cymbal stand like attached to it, like one of those little kid sets. I eventually got one of those. And during that time, I started taking piano lessons as well. So, this was all, um, I was well under 10 years old when this all started, and kind of continued then into, my schooling. As a fourth grader, the music teachers from the middle schools and the high schools, they come down to the elementary school and kind of like scout out, what kind of kids do we have coming in? Who do we think, would like to play an instrument? What instrument would they want to play? It's pretty clear in that session in my fourth grade year that I was, kind of destined to be a percussionist. Um, and then the following year in fifth grade, you get placed into like a fifth grade band class, and then it just goes from there. So, the person that came and kind of scouted me out within our district ended up being my private lesson teacher all through high school. Was the guy that taught the drum line, and he actually has no formal marching experience. A guy named Joe D'Alessandro, great drum set player. But he's kind of the one that brought me up, from an early age through high school, in all facets of percussion, jazz, the jazz bands, the marching band, the concert percussion, like all the things, was really him.
Can you remember specifically with him, since you spent so much time with him and during those formative years, what was important to him? Like, what was that maybe got passed on to you as far as like a foundation?
You have to practice.
You got to put in
I
the work.
mean, yeah. He always used to say, "Talk is cheap." Um, and that always stuck with me. I mean, I've taught so many people, at this point, and I know that I've said that over the years, and it really comes from him. Talk is cheap. It's like, everybody can talk all this, whatever they want to talk, but it's really like, are you producing results in the
Mm.
performance, and what have you, whatever your job is, are you producing the results? And kind of, it's almost like, your head down and just, keep on working, not a lot of talk. It's funny, I play in a lot of fantasy football leagues, and a lot of the people I play against are smack talkers. You know what I mean? Like I always find myself kind of like, I kind of like shy away from that. I don't know. I've never really been a huge smack talker.
You let your actions do the talking for you.
Yeah, now that doesn't mean I haven't talked some smack, in my years, but I try not to kind of get into that. And I think it really comes back to that talk is cheap vibe that I was taught, for so many years and at an early age. But yeah, so talk is cheap. Practice, you have to put in the work. Um,
not just that rehearsal, right?
yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, rehearsal is great, but that's not practice. Practice is a different session, a different time, in the schedule. Um, and even with talent, I was always, told, you've got some natural ability, so there's things that you do that are not really teachable, and that's great. But even with talent, you still have to put in the time, put in the time, put in the effort, put in the hours, to you really get to that, highest level, um, performance. So yeah, I think those couple things really stuck with me.
So even though he didn't have like you said, sort of formal marching experience, did he still have an awareness? Did he pass on? Did he expose you to things like drum corps and stuff like that in your time together?
I don't know that it was really necessarily him. I think I would credit my drum corps like awareness, more to when I was a freshman in high school. Uh, we had some drum sectionals, during the band camp time of year, where we would, outside of school, like, the snare line would go meet at the center snares house, and, we would hang out and drum for a bunch of hours. But I remember kind of being at one of those sessions, and the center snare threw on a VHS of drum corps finals from 1995. So this would have been going
That's
into the
that's my age out.
fall. It was a great year.
Yeah.
Um, this would have been the fall going into 1997, I think. Um, yeah, 97. So, we were watching this VHS, at our drumline sectional, and I was just like, wow, what is this? This is obviously it's a marching band, but like this seems really, really good. Like seeing that many snares, I had never seen a drum line that was that big before, or the flags go around together like that, and the weapons and the brass and the drill, like it was just everything was so um extreme, as it related to what I had, seen previously. And it was all really good. I could tell that it was like really clean and really clear, and the precision of it was captivating to me. Um, so yeah, I think my exposure really, I think it was then, as a freshman and going into my freshman year in high school, at a sectional, um, we just happened to put on a drum corps tape, and there you go.
Did it get to the point where like you would kind of just always want to watch drum corps,
Yes.
listen to drum corps audio? Because that's what it was like for me. I mean, once I got exposed, that's what it was like. Almost,
Just wearing those tapes out.
yes, 100%.
Yes, yeah, and back then, we didn't have, the internet. We didn't have the access that we do now. You can just go to YouTube and type in anything, and it's like, oh, there you go. Like I remember there were very few websites that you could find where it was literally just an audio file. I used to have like floppy disks with audio files on them. Like I had a blue floppy disk for Blue Devils audio, and I had like a maroon floppy disk for the Cadets and a green one for Cavaliers.
That's
um,
awesome.
I could get anything that I could get. But yeah, watching drum corps. I mean, those VHSs, those VHS tapes. I would come home from school and pop it in and hit slow mo when you could actually have the slow mo feature on the video. And I would literally try to like right, left, right,
That's how
right,
you do it.
left,
Yep.
left. Yeah, like I would try to like learn the parts.
Did you transcribe anything?
Um, Actually, yeah, I think I transcribed the ditty. if I'm remembering correctly. There wasn't a lot of transcription going on, but I do recall, I feel like I transcribed the ditty. Or maybe I like found the sheets and I just like copied it. You know, I mean, I was just like, okay, I'm going to write this out and work on my manuscripts, you know?
The ditty was really hard to transcribe because our tempo was all over the place and our interp wasn't great.
Were you playing it together though?
Yes,
There you
absolutely.
go.
It was fun to watch.
It was clean.
Live.
So therefore it was great. As Tom Hannum would say, the tempo is clean.
Who were you a big fan of during that time? Because those are some great years.
Yeah. I was really a fan of kind of all of it, to be honest. I mean, there was something about the cadets that I really enjoyed. I liked the speed, like tempos that were marching. The uniform I thought was really cool. It was, had this kind of like militaristic vibe. The colors were memorable. The Blue Devils were amazing. I never forget that 95 tenor feature. I mean, to this day, it's still one of the best tenor features probably ever. The Cavaliers doing the planets that year. Vanguard was that not the Nutcracker, Phantom Regiment. There was just a lot of Madison Scouts. I mean, you just keep going. They were all such entertaining shows. It was kind of like it was hard to pick one, as a favorite.
Yeah, I was gonna say, don't say Cavaliers is your favorite. 95 Cavaliers is your favorite.
It's a little bit of a sore spot for me.
It's a sore spot.
Oh, hey, it's all good.
Yeah,
I
it's all
get the
good.
whole competitive vibe.
That's some things you don't let go of after even after 30 years.
Yeah. No, I've let go of it.
No, we say that. I say that tongue in cheek.
Yeah.
We just have a good time with that.
Absolutely.
But, that's cool. Do you still have those floppy disks, the color coordinated floppy disks? No.
No.
Lost to time.
Lost to time.
Yeah, I have no idea where those ended up.
A couple thousand years from now, there's going to be an archaeological dig at some landfill somewhere.
Yeah.
You know what I really like though?
They're going to come
this
back
thing?
up.
The color coordination that's like a holdover from our era growing up and like making mixtapes, but like the cassettes would come in different colors and stuff like that, so you could personalize it.
I was going to ask, are you like an OCD person in general?
I would say I'm undiagnosed OCD to some level. Organization, like where things go. I mean, it's in our, as marching arts enthusiasts and professionals, and all those things. We are. It's our world. How things are laid out on the field or on the floor. The order. The clarity, the precision. The music, how precise it all is. I mean, that's kind of it's our nature for things to be very, very clear and organized and transparent and in a certain way, so yeah, that definitely spills over into my normal, real, non-drum corps, non-band life.
You know what's funny? Goots is actually pretty open and vocal about the fact that he has ADHD. And something I noticed is that a lot of neurodiverse people are really good at this, like are really good marching percussionists, so maybe there's something there where in our particular world, it's actually like a superpower instead of being something you have to overcome,
Yeah. I certainly appreciate my kind of my level of order. I try not to let it get in the way too much, but yeah, it is what it is. I mean, I'm not trying to go nuts trying to change myself with it. It's whatever. My apartment is in order and everything's where it needs to be. We're good.
Yeah. Speaking of Goots, he was telling me too that you're like the person that comes up. You're like the movement guy for the drumline there at Boston. Is that safe to say? You're the one that coordinates all the movement. And you come up with all the movement the drumline does.
Yeah. It's something that I kind of started doing when I was with Carolina Crown, but over the years, I think that's maybe what more people know me to do. More of the places that I go into work, a lot of times it'll be producing the movement, staging, choreographing the percussion element. But yeah, I'll show up to move in and basically kind of build the show on the field. From a drill staging perspective, and then we kind of go through and talk about what moments we feel like we want to enhance visually. Then we kind of go from there. I'm always trying to coordinate with my counterparts in the brass and the color guard. If there's something conceptual that we can kind of portray visually, let's do that. But yeah, that's kind of I would say, overarching kind of job with the corps, is to kind of take care of what the battery does visually. And then once all those steps are kind of laid out, then it becomes about coaching performance. I'm also a percussionist, so I go back to my musical roots, running around with the drum line, talking about clarity on the field and all that stuff. So there's a bunch of different roles that I have, but yeah, my primary role starting out in any season is to get the battery on the field visually and produce what they do.
Did you come up with the lookup move from this season? Is that you?
Yeah, yeah.
That was cool. I like that part. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, there's Colin McNutt is such an amazing composer and arranger. Choreographing for him is not always the easiest task. And I'm always trying to, when we have those moments where we are standing still, or, if, hey, this is going to move from here to here, but we want it to have more of a choreographed kind of way of getting from point A to point B. I'm always just trying to, make sure that it feels great for the performer. Like it, correlates with the music, like they would have done that action anyway with that accent or with that part. Just trying to bring the music to life from a visual standpoint, in a cohesive way for the performer. So some of those little nuances is, bringing your head up is, pretty simple thing to do, but, when it happens and how it happens, just kind of trying to bring some new things, or, make it feel like it's cohesive for the performer.
Yeah, there is a really fine line when we're talking about adding a visual component to the playing, where on like just a little bit this way and it looks a little bit contrived, right? Like you're just trying to check off a box, and but with some slight adjustments, it really looks like it makes sense, right? Like it's supposed to be there, kind of thing. And it takes a special kind of brain to be able to come up with that and be on the right side of that. You talked about being a visual learner and all of that stuff. So a lot of this like makes sense. I mean, at least to me, in terms of getting, as we're getting to know you, that you look at it and you go, this is what seems like it makes sense for it to look like,
Yeah. And, I think there's always limitations, right? Like, we wear our instruments, so our torsos, our rib cages, our spines, like we're limited because of the equipment. It's, oh, we have to go from here to here, so that limits what we can do. So I'm always trying to kind of like find ways to enhance what we do, but not have it seem like it doesn't make sense, for the performer.
Is the movement and choreography, is that something you'd always wanted to do, or how did you like, just somebody said one time, hey, do you mind doing that? And then you just found that to be a passion?
And actually you talked about being a kid and taking tumbling and doing gymnastics and stuff like that, right?
Yeah. Well, Rob, to answer your question, no. I back when I was marching, we choreography, especially for the drum line, and the brass line to some extent, it like wasn't nearly what it is or what has become today. And I think a lot of that is WGI and, kind of the general progression of what we are presenting. It's way more theatrical. It's way more movement based. Not just drill. We certainly still drill around, but the dance aspect of it has definitely taken off. So I think just over the years, of doing it. Like when I was aging out, let me think about this a second. In 2001, I don't know that we had like any choreography in the drum line. If anything, maybe we stood in second position, but like that's not even choreography. It's just your feet are apart, right? 2002, very, very limited. And it was never really, um, uniform. Like it was always kind of a choose your own adventure kind of thing. So it wasn't like someone was choreographing us, um, like we would do today. 2003, I think we started doing some different poses, and there was a dude laying down on the ground, and some different things like that. And then I think in '04, we stood in passe for like a few counts. We really weren't doing a lot of skills as it relates to that stuff. So then I started teaching, and things started to evolve a little bit. I remember in 2006 there was a pretty substantial moment for the percussion at Scouts where I was at the time, and me and James Sparling, who I was working with there, kind of just did it, just did the movement, and then it kind of just continued to kind of like escalate from there and continued to grow. Each year that went by, it was like, okay, we want more and more of this type of movement for the brass and the battery, and just kept going from there. So I feel like I was able to kind of gravitate toward it naturally because of those previous experiences I had, as an acrobat of sorts, flips and all kinds of stuff like that. So just again the way the body moves, and how dancers move to music, kind of lended itself naturally in a way for me.
Yeah, you're talking about like '03, and you were mentioning the guy laying on the ground. I went back and I watched that feature today. Was that hard to clean, like music wise? Because it's like there's layers of there's different layers that there's
Simultaneous demand.
yes, there you go. Because you got like in a line, out of line, and now you got height.
For sure. I mean, there's a volume, there's a dimensionality to, you're not just standing in a line listening left and right. But there's a stack, a front to back of the form, a height to rise, or high to low. So I mean, yeah, I guess I do remember we were not very good in '03 for a long time. We were not clean until maybe the last 2 weeks. I mean, certainly the last week. I mean, we were around the Allentown show. I remember having a show in Westchester, Pennsylvania, and it was Cadets were there, Vanguard was there, and I believe Vanguard um, came out on top in percussion at that Westchester show. And then the very next night was Allentown, and the Cadets were on top. And then from that point on, we weren't down anymore in percussion. We kind of won out from that point. But I mean, it took us all season to get, to that level of quality, clarity, consistently. So yeah, I mean, a moment like that was relatively unorthodox, especially for the Cadets at the time.
You already mentioned about auditioning for the Cadets first as a junior in high school. So you marched your first year right out of high school, basically, right? Because you marched the following season. Why Cadets? Was it just a proximity thing, or was it because that's the place you were like, that's my quote unquote dream corps that I wanted to end up at, and also that first season, just out of high school, was there anything that was particularly challenging for you?
Yeah, a lot of questions to answer there. So I think the choice behind the Cadets, excuse me, if I go back to my freshman year and that videotape that I was telling you, it was like, oh man, there were so many great drum corps. That while it was the 1995 finals video, it was in the year of 1997 that I was watching it. And DCI 1997 had already occurred. So like the 97 videos were already available. We had the PBS broadcast back then as well around Thanksgiving in my area. So I remember like seeing 97 finals very soon after watching that 95 video. And I remember very clearly really liking the Cadets from that year, particularly the opener into the second movement. I mean, the opener from that show just like blew me away. I mean, the horn parts, the drumming, the speed, especially the end of the tune, they were just running everywhere. It just really kind of stuck out to me. Um, so I think it was in that 1997 show that I really kind of like stuck on the Cadets. And then I went to Allentown that following summer. This would have been Allentown or DCI 1998. So that was the first drum corps show I ever gone to live was 98 Allentown. And I was like a kid in a candy shop, it was like, I thought everybody that I saw was amazing. I mean, there are so many drum corps that were at that show that don't exist anymore. Little drum corps from Canada, um, where they're going on and it's like 5 p.m. at night. It's still sunny out, and I'm like, oh my god, this is the best thing I've ever seen. Um, so I feel like I'm going on a tangent, but yeah, I kind of decided the Cadets is the core that I really gravitate to. Um, they did just so happen to be close in proximity. I did not have to get on a plane to go audition. At the time they were still out of Bergen County, up by New York City. So that's New York City is about 55 miles, 50 to 55 miles from where I grew up. So it was not a tough commute, to get to camp. So it was convenient, that I had such a high level drum corps, in my backyard, so to speak. Um, and they would also rehearse in different places around New Jersey. So, that New York City campsite was one of the furthest or farthest. Um, there would be other times where they'd be even closer. So it did work out for me, that it was that close.